The first time we saw the tree, it was by accident. We weren't supposed to be in that part of the forest. The trail had ended 2 hours before, swallowed up by thorny brambles and a growing sense of unease. But curiosity, that dangerous whisper, had already taken hold. And by the time the sun began dipping behind the dense canopy, we were hopelessly lost. There were 4 of us. Me, Liam, the self-proclaimed leader with more confidence than sense. My younger sister Harper, always snapping photos for her tiny blog that no one read. Then there was Miles, quiet, sharp-eyed, skeptical to the bone. And finally Zoe, whose idea of adventure normally stopped at camping in her backyard. But somehow she'd been the one to suggest a hike. None of us could have guessed what we'd stumble upon. It happened just as the light began to change, when the air itself felt thick, like the wood were holding their breath. That's when we found the clearing. And the tree. It didn't look special at first. Just tall and gnarled, with roots like twisted arms and bark that flaked off in papery curls. But something about it felt wrong. Not dangerous, exactly, but ancient. A presence. We were drawn to it like moths. Harper was the first to speak. "It's beautiful," she whispered, already lifting her phone for a photo. No signal. Zoe muttered, tapping her screen. "Figures." Miles didn't say anything at all. He was staring at the tree, frowning. I watched as he took a hesitant step closer. That's when we saw the words. Not carved, not painted, grown. They twisted through the bark like veins, letters rising beneath the surface as though the tree had birthed them. The message read, "Tomorrow, one of you won't leave the forest." We froze. Not because we believed it, of course. It had to be a prank, right? Someone playing games. Maybe there was a projector or some elaborate trick carved by locals. But the bark was smooth, seamless. The letters shimmered faintly, pulsing with life. "Okay, not funny," Liam said, forcing a laugh that cracked at the edges. "Let's just go back." But we didn't, because when we turned around, the clearing was gone. No path, no trail, just a wall of trees we hadn't seen before. Harper's camera clicked. "Guys," she said slowly, pointing at the screen. "The tree. Look." We gathered around. The last photo she'd taken showed something different. The message had changed. "Don't run. It sees movement." A chill spidered down my spine. That's when I noticed it, the sudden absence of sound. No birds. No wind. Just a faint creaking of the tree in the still air. What does that mean? Zoe whispered. Miles stepped back. "It means we don't move. Not unless we want to find out what it is." We stood frozen, barely breathing. The tree loomed larger than before, or maybe it was just the shadows playing tricks. Harper lowered the camera. "Okay," she said, her voice trembling. "Someone's messing with us. There's no way a tree." The bark shifted. Right in front of us, the words faded. New ones bloomed in their place. "Don't look behind you." No one turned. We were too scared. Then we heard it, a soft rustling behind us, leaves crunching, a presence shifting through the trees, slow and deliberate. It wasn't the wind. It was footsteps, heavy, wet. Harper whimpered. The rustling stopped. We didn't dare speak. Then the tree's message changed again. "It's gone, for now." We exhaled all at once, knees trembling. Liam, always a brave one, muttered, "Screw this. I'm running." "No." Miles hissed. "Didn't you read what it said? Movement." But it was too late. Liam bolted into the trees, crashing through brush like an animal. We all turned to watch him disappear. Silence followed. Then a scream. Cut short. We didn't speak. Didn't cry. We just stared into the woods where Liam had vanished. My chest was tight with disbelief. He had to be messing with us, hiding behind a tree, waiting for us to panic. But deep down, we all knew. The tree had been right. We were 3 now. "I want to go home," Zoe whispered, tears filling her eyes. Miles looked at the tree. "I think we can't. Not until it lets us." "What the hell is it?" Harper asked, stepping back. The bark changed again. Ask the roots. They remember everything. Against every sane instinct, I knelt near the base of the tree. My hand hovered above the soil, trembling. "Don't," Zoe said, but it was too late. I touched the roots. A jolt went through me like static. My vision blurred. And then I saw them. Visions. 1,000 years of memories rushed into my mind. Fires, floods, laughter, screams. People kneeling just like me. Sacrifices. Rituals. Then faces. Familiar ones. Ours. But not from today. From decades ago. Harper, Zoe, Miles, me, and Liam, standing in the same spot, in different clothes. A different time. "What the hell?" I gasped, pulling my hand back. "What did you see?" Miles asked. I think we've been here before." The bark shimmered again. It always ends the same. The sun vanished behind the trees. Darkness swept in fast, unnatural. Harper clutched her backpack, shaking. "I don't want to die out here." "You won't," I said, though I wasn't sure if it was a lie. Miles glanced around. "We need shelter. It's getting dark." Zoe pointed. "There's a cave." We hadn't noticed it before. A jagged slit in the rocks just beyond the clearing, as if the forest had revealed it at just the right time. We didn't debate. We moved, slowly, carefully. Inside, the cave smelled of earth and rot. We huddled near the back, trying not to look at the bones scattered near the entrance. Human bones. Harper sat beside me, her voice barely a whisper. "Do you think Liam's really gone?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. The wind outside howled through the trees like a cry. The forest felt alive, angry, and the trees stood silently in the distance, watching us, waiting. That night, I dreamed of roots wrapping around my legs, pulling me into the soil, of voices whispering secrets I couldn't understand. When I woke, the cave was empty. Harper and Zoe were gone. Only Miles remained, staring at the cave's mouth, his face pale as ash. "They walked out," he said, like they were in a trance. I scrambled to my feet. "Why didn't you stop them?" "I tried, but something told me not to." The wind hissed outside. We stepped into the morning light. The tree was waiting. Its bark glistened, words bleeding across the surface. "Two remain. One remembers. One is marked." Miles looked at me. "What does that mean?" I turned away, because I already knew. The tree didn't speak in words the way we do. It whispered in visions, memories, and dread. That morning, as I stood beside Miles, shivering beneath a pale and uncaring sky, I realized we were no longer just hikers who'd wandered too far. We were part of something. Something old. Something that didn't need permission. Two remain. One remembers. One is marked. The message was fresh, bleeding through the bark like wounds. The words shimmered with an oily sheen, and when I blinked, they were gone, replaced with blank, silent bark, as if the tree had said all it needed. Miles stared at me. "You remember something, don't you?" I hesitated. "Yes," I said, "but it's not just memory. It's like I've lived this before. All of it. We've come to this forest. We've seen that tree. And I paused, my throat dry. We died. Over and over." He didn't speak, just slowly nodded. We searched for Harper and Zoe for hours. Their footprints were faint in the morning dew, leading toward the deeper parts of the forest, where the trees grew closer together and the sunlight vanished beneath layers of moss-covered branches. The forest didn't want us to leave. It shifted. Trails curved in impossible loops. Sounds echoed in the wrong direction, and time felt elastic. We found Harper's camera by a stream, half buried in mud. Her last photo was of Zoe, standing in front of a hollow tree, her eyes glazed, her mouth slightly open, as if listening to something we couldn't hear. Behind her, carved into the bark of the hollow tree, were the words. She chose silence. You must choose pain. Miles closed the camera with shaking hands. What does that mean? It means, I said, voice low, that we're not getting them back without paying for it. That was when we noticed it, on the inside of Miles' left wrist. A mark, thin, jagged, almost like bark, etched beneath his skin. What the hell? He whispered. The lines twisted and pulsed, dark as charcoal. It hadn't been there before. "You're the one who's marked," I said. "Not me." No, Miles looked at me with strange intensity. "The tree said one remembers and one is marked. What if it needs both?" The thought sat in my stomach like stone. We camped that night near a decaying watchtower we stumbled across. Nothing more than rotted boards and a rusted ladder climbing into broken air. From the top, we could see the tree glowing faintly in the clearing far below. It pulsed, like a heartbeat. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I dreamed of different versions of myself, each meeting a different end. Falling into the stream, being dragged into the roots, screaming into the hollow. Each time, the tree stood still, watching. At dawn, the message had changed again. Memory is the key. Go where it all began. I sat on the stone base of the tower, running my fingers through the cold earth, trying to think. Where it all began. "Miles," I said slowly, "what if we've known this forest longer than we remember?" "You mean in past lives?" "No, I mean maybe our memories have been taken. Each time we come here, it resets, but some part of us always remembers." He looked up, eyes dark. "Then we need to find the original version of this tree." It sounded insane, but nothing else made sense anymore. We headed deeper into the woods, and with each step, the forest changed. It no longer looked like the place we hiked into 2 days ago. The leaves were thicker, darker. The trees curved inward unnaturally, some almost looking like figures, arms raised, mouths open. The deeper we went, the more the air thickened with tension, like we were intruding on something sacred. Then we found it, a clearing not marked on any map, older than the rest of the forest. In the center stood a stump, wide as a car, blackened and scarred. And beside it, a second tree. This one was dying, pale, its bark peeling in long, curling strips. But the word still moved along its trunk. "You've done this before. You've failed every time." I knelt beside the stump. The roots were still alive, throbbing. "I remember this place," I whispered. Miles didn't speak. He just stared at the second tree like it might lunge at him. The mark on his wrist began to glow faintly. Then the ground trembled. It wasn't an earthquake. It was footsteps, heavy, wet, like something dragging itself toward us. Miles grabbed my arm. "We need to go." But I was frozen, because I could see something rising from beneath the roots. A figure, tall, shapeless, as if the forest itself had grown legs. Its face was bark, its eyes hollow knots, its mouth non-existent. But still, I heard it speak. "You took the gift. Now you owe the cost." Miles grabbed my shoulder. "Run!" This time, I didn't hesitate. We ran until our lungs ached, until branches tore at our faces, until the only sound was our heartbeat slamming in our ears. When we stopped, the forest was quiet again. Too quiet. We were back in the original clearing. The main tree still stood, waiting. And there, slumped against its base, was Harper. Alive. Barely. She looked up at us, her eyes glazed. "You have to finish it," she rasped. "What?" I knelt beside her. "Harper, what did it do to you?" She lifted a shaking hand and pointed to the tree. "It knows who broke the circle." Then her body went still. The bark pulsed once. One left to claim. Then the forest wakes. Miles turned to me, face pale. "What circle?" I didn't answer, because the memories were returning, flashes of a ritual we performed as children. In this forest, a day, a circle drawn in salt, a promise broken. The tree had never forgotten. Neither had the forest. Miles took a step back. "You're remembering more than you're saying." I looked up. "Miles, I think you broke the circle." His eyes widened. "What?" "You ran. You laughed. You left the salt line open. The tree gave us a gift, knowledge, and you shattered the bond." Suddenly, the bark shifted again. He must return what was taken, or be taken himself. Miles stared at his wrist. The mark was spreading, curling up his arm like ivy. He fell to his knees, gasping. "You have to go back," I whispered, "to the stump, to where it began." "I won't make it," he said, teeth clenched. I can feel it inside me, like roots, inside. I looked back at the tree, at Harper's lifeless body, at the forest beginning to hum again, like something waking from a long, dark dream. "I'll go with you," I said, and we turned toward the darkness once more, not knowing if we'd return. The path back to the stump felt different this time. The forest had changed again, not in form, but in feeling. It no longer tried to confuse or trick us. Now it watched. Every branch overhead, every root beneath our feet, every whisper of wind carried the same message. They remember. Now they must pay. Miles limped beside me, the mark on his wrist now reaching past his elbow, dark veins spidering up toward his shoulder. He didn't say a word, but I could see the agony in his face. The roots weren't just growing on him. They were in him. The forest wasn't wasting time. We arrived at a blackened stump just as the sky turned a bruised violet, the last light of day bleeding out behind jagged clouds. The stump pulsed faintly, like a dying heart, and I realized it wasn't just wood. It was a gateway, a wound in the earth, a scar left from something that had once clawed its way through. Miles dropped to his knees. "I remember now," he said through gritted teeth. "We were 11. You, me, Harper, Zoe, and my brother." My breath caught. "Your brother." He nodded slowly, eyes distant. "Jake." He was 12. We made the circle, dared each other to stay overnight in the woods. But he went first, stepped into the ring, said he wasn't scared of trees. I could see it in flashes now. A boy I had long forgotten. Bright eyes, loud laughter, and then screaming, bark wrapping around his legs, his mouth opening to yell, but no sound came out. "We never found him," I whispered. "We lied," Miles said, "to our parents. Told them he ran away." The wind roared through the trees, sudden and sharp, and then silence. A shape emerged beside the stump. It was taller than before, more human than before. The bark figure stood motionless, but its presence was suffocating. Its face had changed. It now bore faint traces of something familiar beneath the wood. Jake! His features were twisted by the years, the forest, the curse, but his eyes, hollow as they were, held recognition. "Miles!" I breathed, but Miles wasn't afraid. He stepped forward, tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I left you." The figure didn't move, but its shadow did, stretching across the ground, wrapping around Miles like vines. Miles didn't fight it. "I'll finish it," he said. "I'll return what was taken." He pulled out the old pocket knife from his backpack, the one we'd used as kids to carve our names into the trees. Slowly, he held it to his forearm, over the darkest part of the mark, and pressed. Blood ran down his skin, blackened where the roots had taken hold. Then he placed his hand on the stump. The forest screamed, not out loud, but inside us. It was like being split in two. My knees buckled, vision swimming with fire and fog. I saw memories not my own, flashes of others who had come to the tree, centuries of broken pacts, children who vanished, circles never closed. I saw the tree as it once was, enormous, radiant, reaching to the heavens, not cursed, but sacred, until the humans came, until we came. The gift had always been knowledge. The cost had always been truth. And the truth was, we broke something ancient when we took without offering. When I opened my eyes, Miles was gone. Not dead, gone. The stump was still bleeding, but the bark figure had vanished. In its place stood the pale, dying tree from before, now leafless. Its bark was smooth again, silent. I screamed his name. No response. But then the roots moved, and in their motion they formed words in the dirt. The first is claimed. One remains. The door is still open. I backed away, heart pounding. The forest around me had gone still again, but it didn't feel peaceful. It felt paused, like something holding its breath. When I returned to the original clearing, Zoe was waiting, alive, but different. Her skin was cold, her eyes hollow. She stood without moving as I approached, as if she'd been placed there. "Zoe." She blinked. "I heard it," she whispered. "For days. Every time I tried to sleep, it whispered. Promises. Warnings. I couldn't tell which was which. She turned slowly toward me. It says you're next. What? She stepped closer, her voice barely audible. It said you remember too much. That you've always remembered, even when we were kids. My chest tightened. No, Zoe, that's not true. I forgot like all of us. She shook her head. No, you made the circle. You drew it. You opened the tree. The trees around us rustled violently, and the message changed again. She told. She broke the silence. She must be silenced. I looked at Zoe, and she looked at me. Run, she said. But I didn't. I grabbed her wrist and pulled her with me as the branches above exploded with motion, birds fleeing, trees twisting, the ground cracking open behind us. We ran through the forest like hunted animals, dodging roots that lunged upward like serpents. The trail shifted again, but something inside me, some part of the memory, knew where to go. We ran until we reached a place I had almost believed wasn't real. The stone circle. Old, cracked, overgrown, but still standing. 5 stones, one for each of us. In the center, the remnants of the original ritual site. Burned offerings, melted candles. The edge of the salt line still visible in the soil. We have to finish it, I said. Zoe looked at me, half in a trance. It won't work. Miles is gone. No, not gone. Claimed. There's a difference. He might still be part of this. I grabbed the remains of the salt pouch from my bag. Strange I kept it. Even stranger it was still full. We stepped into the circle. This time, we didn't joke. We didn't laugh. We chanted the word we once thought were nonsense, passed down by older kids who thought it was just spooky fun. But now I knew they were real. They were ancient. What was taken, now returned. What was broken, now repaired. By root and bark in sacred soil, let silence fall where none dared. The wind screamed. The trees twisted. And from the darkness, I saw them. Miles, Papa, even Jake, standing just outside the circle. Not alive, but not dead. Something in between. Jake reached out, but couldn't pass the salt line. And then the tree began to burn. Not with fire, but with light. Blinding. Pure. Like a memory too beautiful to hold. The clearing trembled. The stump cracked. And a final message blazed across the roots like a brand. Balance restored. But the forest never forgets. Then they were gone. All of them. And I was alone. Zoe had vanished. The stones around me crumbled into ash, the salt line blown into the wind. The forest had quieted again, but the trees still stood, and they watched. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was afraid, though I was, but because the forest wouldn't let me. Even when I closed my eyes, its whispers slithered beneath my thoughts, not in words exactly, but in feelings, regret, hunger, memory. When dawn finally came, it was pale and cold. A winter kind of light, even though it wasn't winter. I stood at the edge of the woods, staring at the tree line. Nothing stirred. Not a bird. Not a squirrel. Not even the wind. It was as if the entire forest was holding its breath. The salt circle was gone. The 5 stones we used as kids had crumbled into gray dust that scattered in the date. There was no sign of Zoe, Miles, or the others. But I knew they were still in there. Not alive. Not dead. Just changed. I had 2 choices. Leave and never return. I'll go back and finish what we started. But leaving wasn't really an option. Not anymore. Not with the whispers in my mind. Not with the creeping sensation that the tree wasn't done with me yet. There was something I hadn't seen. Something it had shown me, but only in pieces. So I went back. This time, I followed the roots. They coiled through the soil like veins, pulsing faintly beneath the moss. Most people would miss them, mistake them for fallen branches or dried vines. But if you looked closely, they led somewhere deeper, beneath the trees, into the heart of the forest. It took hours, maybe more. Time didn't flow properly under the canopy. Shadows shifted against the light, and the sun never seemed to rise or fall. Finally, I came to a clearing I'd never seen before, a hollow in the earth, sunk deep and perfectly round. In the center stood a tree unlike any I'd ever known. Not dead, not alive. Pale as bone, with bark like cracked porcelain and leaves that shimmered like silver glass. It didn't pulse or breathe like the others. It listened. I didn't need to ask what it was. This was the oracle root, the true tree, the source, the one the stump above had splintered from long ago. It wasn't monstrous. It was beautiful in a terrible, haunting way. Around its base were dozens, no, hundreds of things half buried in the soil. Toys, shoes, teeth, things left behind by those who had come here before us. Offerings or sacrifices. I knelt at the edge, overwhelmed. And then it spoke, not in sound, but in thought. You remembered. You returned. You alone carry the burden. My throat tightened. What do you want from me? Not want. Need. Visions flashed in my mind. Hundreds of faces. Children like us. Teens. Even adults. All drawn to the forest over centuries. All curious. All foolish. All wanting to know. And every time, the forest offered a glimpse of the future, of truth, of things forbidden. But every gift came with a cost. The problem wasn't the knowledge. It was the debt. No one ever paid it. We didn't pay it. Until Miles. And even that wasn't enough. The oracle root revealed the truth. When we opened the first circle as kids, we awakened something ancient, an intelligence older than names, older than stories. A force tied to time itself. Every question we asked, every secret we sought, left an echo in that force. It bent fate around us, changing what should have happened to what we wanted to happen. Every time we looked into the future, we rewrote it. In reality, it didn't like being rewritten. Jake was the first to pay. Hopper next. Now Miles. Only I remained. But I wasn't alone. Behind me, footsteps. Slow. Barefoot. I turned. Zoe stood there, pale and vacant. Her eyes were glossy, like she was seeing something beyond this world. Did you hear it too? I asked. She nodded slowly. It told me what you have to do. I knew what she meant. There had always been 5 of us. That number mattered. It wasn't symbolic. It was structural, like a pentagram or a seal. A 5-point anchor to hold something at bay. We were the seal, and the seal was breaking. I have to go back, I said. Zoe's lip trembled. No, you have to stay. It doesn't want to be sealed again. That's why it hunts. That's why it remembers. I looked past her, toward the oracle root. It shimmered in silence, glowing faintly with some internal power. And then I understood. It didn't want us to stop it. It wanted to spread. Each of us who saw the future became a conduit, a carrier of its influence. Wherever we went, it went, like a virus of thought, a disease of destiny. We didn't just look into the future. We infected it. Suddenly, the forest howled. From the trees around us came the others, figures half consumed by bark and vine. Harper, her mouth sealed shut by moss. Miles, his skin a patchwork of roots. Jake, older now, but still frozen in his final moment. They surrounded the hollow. The oracle root pulsed again. Choose. I had one chance. I stepped toward the base of the tree and placed my palm against its bark. It was cold, not like ice, but like deep time, like stone that had never felt the sun. Memories poured into me, mine. There's the forests. I saw the first child who had ever come to the oracle, a boy in skins and bone jewelry, thousands of years ago. He asked how to stop a flood that would wipe out his village. The oracle told him. The boy lived. His people did not. The tree had always told the truth, but it never guaranteed safety. And I realized the only way to stop it was to silence the root itself, which meant, Zoe, I turned to her. You knew this, didn't you? I asked. She nodded. It showed me everything, but I couldn't stop it alone. Tears welled in my eyes. Neither can I. Her hand found mine. But together, maybe we can contain it. The final ritual had never been about power. It had been about acceptance. We didn't need to destroy the tree. We needed to become its guardians, to hold it back from leaking into the world. We stood at the base of the oracle root and began to chant. The language wasn't English. It was older than any tongue, guttural, broken, like the cracking of ice beneath your feet. The ground shook, the light vanished, and then darkness. For a moment, I thought we were dead, but then the forest exhaled, a long, slow breath, and the whisper returned. The seal holds, for now. When I opened my eyes, the oracle root was gone. In its place, just a patch of mossy soil. The forest had shifted again, no longer menacing, but not welcoming either. It watched. It waited. Zoe was gone. So was Miles. But I knew they weren't lost. They were part of it now. And maybe, one day, I would be too. I woke up on the side of Highway 9, my hand still coated in date. There was no sign of the forest behind me. Not a single tree. Just the hum of passing cars, a billboard for a car dealership, and the hazy light of an ordinary afternoon. It should have been a relief, but I knew better. The oracle root was gone, yes, but not erased. It had simply retreated, buried itself in a place deeper than roots could reach, and it had left a part of itself inside me. I stumbled home in a daze. My parents didn't ask where I'd been. The news reported me as found after 3 days missing in the woods, but to me it felt like I'd been gone for weeks, maybe longer. And things had changed. Subtly, horrifyingly. The clock in my kitchen blinked a time that didn't exist, 13:01. My reflection, for a single heartbeat, stared after I had moved. The cat wouldn't come near me. The TV turned on by itself, always the static, always with the sound of whispering beneath the hiss. And worst of all, the dream started again. Only now, I wasn't dreaming about the future. I was remembering someone else's. Every night, I saw cities burning beneath red skies, oceans frozen solid, people screaming without mouths, running from things with too many eyes and not enough faces. I saw myself older, thinner, eyes sunken like I'd seen something no one should. And always, the tree, watching, waiting, spreading. The forest had made me its messenger, its seed. I tried to ignore it, go back to school, pretend things were normal, smile at teachers, laugh when classmates asked where I'd been. But sometimes I would answer their questions before they finished asking, or say something that hadn't happened yet, only for it to come true later. Whispers followed me in hallways. By November, I stopped going altogether. They said I had PTSD. Maybe they were right. Or maybe I was just something else now. Something other. One day, while walking past the old library, I noticed a man staring at me from across the street. He was tall, gray coat, sunglasses even though it was cloudy. He didn't move, didn't blink. When I turned to look again, he was gone. The next day, there were 2 of them. They never approached me, just stood at a distance, on the sidewalk, in the cafeteria, in my driveway, always watching. I finally confronted one. "What do you want from me?" I asked. The man tilted his head slightly. "To know what you know," he said flatly. "I don't know anything anymore." I lied. He smiled. Cold, like ice cracking over a frozen lake. "Then why do the birds avoid you?" He turned and walked away. After that, I started keeping journals. Not to write down memories, but to track shifts in reality. I noticed little things, logos slightly different than I remembered, people whose names changed from week to week. A girl who'd never existed suddenly had a locker next to mine, and everyone acted like she'd been there for years. Reality was bending, bleeding, and I wasn't the only one seeing it. I found online forums filled with people describing the same thing. Forests that whispered, dreams that predicted accidents, trees that moved when no one was looking. Some of them had seen it too, the root, and they were all being hunted by people who wanted to contain it or control it, because the future wasn't just leaking anymore. It was flooding. One night, I received an envelope slid under my door. No return address. Inside was a single Polaroid photo. Zoe, but not the Zoe I remembered. This one had bark running up her arm like a tattoo. Her eyes were black with silver rings, like tree rings in reverse. She stood beside the oracle root. Only now, it was enormous, towering, its leaves no longer silver but crimson, and scrawled on the back, "It's growing faster. We're running out of time." I dropped the photo. Everything inside me screamed to run. Hide. Forget. Live a normal life. But normal wasn't an option anymore. I was connected. Bound. So I made a choice. The last choice I may ever truly make. I went back. Not to the forest. It was gone now, replaced by a strip mall and a parking lot. But I felt the way. The path wasn't physical. It was temporal. A tear in time, a splinter in reality. I found it in the basement of my old elementary school, hidden behind the furnace. A knot of roots pulsing faintly in the dark. I touched it, and I fell. Fell through memories that weren't mine. Through futures that hadn't happened. Through versions of myself, dead, mad, vanished. Until I landed in a place that wasn't place at all. Just light. And the tree. Towering now. Infinite. Its branches spread across universes. Its leaves shimmered with the faces of the dead, the unborn, and the never were. It didn't speak. It showed. A future where its knowledge ended war, solved disease, gave humanity godlike control. But also a future where time bent until it shattered, where humanity was devoured by the very truth it sought. Two futures, two paths. And I understood then. The oracle root doesn't give us the future. It gives us all futures. We are the ones who make them real. The burden isn't knowledge. It's choice. And that's when I saw Zoe again, standing at the base of the tree, her eyes bright with light. I can't hold it alone, she whispered. You won't have to, I said. We reached for the trunk together. And the tree did something it had never done before. It let go. I woke up in my bed. It was raining outside. Birds chirped. No whispers. No shifting reflections. The clock reads 7:42 a.m. Normal. But on my desk sat a single leaf. Silver. Translucent. Still wet with dew. A reminder. The future isn't written. But somewhere, it waits. And if you ever find a tree with 5 stones in a circle at its base, walk away before it learns your name.